Game changer. U.S. tariff policy eliminates $800 de minimis poses existential risk to Temu, Shein and Taobao. On February 2, 2025, President Donald Trump signed a series of executive orders that fundamentally altered U.S. tariff policy, directly impacting Chinese e-commerce platforms such as Temu, Shein and Taobao. The cornerstone of this policy shift is the elimination of the de minimis exemption, which previously allowed goods valued under $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free. This development has the potential to severely disrupt the business models of these platforms, which have relied heavily on this provision to offer low-cost goods to American consumers. Background on the de minimis provision. The de minimis exemption has been a critical factor for e-commerce growth, particularly for low-cost retailers. Established during the 1930s, this provision enabled a substantial increase in the volume of small-value imports. In 2024 alone, the U.S. processed over 1.3 billion de minimis shipments, marking a significant rise from just 139 million in 2015. This loophole has facilitated the direct shipment of inexpensive products from Chinese retailers to American consumers, allowing platforms like Temu and Shein to thrive by undercutting traditional brick-and-mortar retailers. The policy change. The executive order mandates a 10% tariff on Chinese goods and a 25% tariff on those imported from Canada and Mexico. The elimination of the de minimis exemption means that all packages, regardless of value, will now be subject to these tariffs. This policy is positioned as a means to recover lost tariff revenues and to enhance customs enforcement against illicit goods such as fentanyl, which has raised significant public health concerns. Immediate impact on Chinese e-commerce platforms. The implications of this tariff policy are profound for platforms like Temu and Shein. Both companies have carved out substantial market shares by offering deeply discounted products, often at prices significantly lower than those found in U.S. retail stores. The removal of the de minimis exemption will likely increase costs for these retailers, as they will now have to pay tariffs on many of their shipments, which could lead to higher prices for consumers. Temu, owned by PDD Holdings, has already begun adapting its strategy in anticipation of these changes. The company has started to bulk ship products to U.S. warehouses to mitigate potential delays and costs associated with individual shipments that could be subject to tariffs. This shift aims to maintain its competitive edge in speed and price. But the underlying cost structure is set to change dramatically. Shein, another major player in the U.S. fast fashion market, has also been proactive, establishing distribution centers in the U.S. to reduce shipping times and costs. However, the new tariffs present a significant hurdle, potentially eroding the pricing advantage that has driven their rapid growth. Consumer impact. The elimination of the de minimis exemption is expected to disproportionately affect lower-income consumers who have benefited from the low prices offered by these platforms. The affordability of items such as apparel, electronics, and household goods will likely diminish, as companies may pass on the increased costs to consumers. This could drive many shoppers to reconsider their purchasing habits, potentially leading to a shift back towards traditional retailers or other platforms that can still leverage more favorable pricing structures. Responses from the e-commerce sector. In light of the tariff imposition, there is an anticipated response from the broader e-commerce ecosystem. Companies like Amazon, which has established its own bargain outlet, are expected to benefit from the reduced competition posed by the tariff changes. Amazon's marketplace has long connected U.S. consumers with Chinese manufacturers, and with the operational changes necessitated by the new tariffs, American retailers may find renewed opportunities to capture market share. Legal implications and future considerations. The legal ramifications of this policy change remain uncertain. Trade lawyers suggest that the language used in the executive orders could imply that the elimination of the de minimis exemption may apply not only to new tariffs but also retroactively to existing tariffs on Chinese goods. This ambiguity raises questions about the broader impact on trade relations and the potential for future negotiations. Conclusion. In conclusion, the U.S. government's recent tariff policy changes represent a significant turning point for Chinese e-commerce platforms like Temu and Shein. The elimination of the $800 de minimis exemption poses an existential risk to these companies, fundamentally altering their operational models and pricing strategies in the U.S. market. As these platforms navigate the new landscape, the effects on consumer behavior, competitive dynamics, and the overall e-commerce ecosystem will be closely observed in the months to come. The recent U.S. tariff policy changes, particularly the elimination of the $800 de minimis exemption, have surfaced counterintuitive implications that could reshape the landscape of e-commerce and consumer behavior significantly. While the changes are framed as protective measures for American consumers and businesses, particularly against the backdrop of rising concerns about product safety and illegal substances like fentanyl, the unintended consequences may undermine the very goals these policies aim to achieve. Counterintuitive information. 1. Protectionism versus price accessibility. The tariffs are designed to protect domestic industries and address safety concerns, yet they simultaneously risk making products less accessible to lower-income consumers who rely on affordable goods from platforms like Temu and Shein. This could lead to a paradox where the intended protection of American interests harms the very consumers it aims to protect, increasing their costs and reducing their purchasing power. 2. Potential backfire on U.S. retail. Established U.S. retailers, which are often seen as beneficiaries of such tariffs, might not fully capitalize on the situation. The price increases due to tariffs could drive consumers to seek alternatives, including domestic retailers that may not be able to match the low prices previously offered by Chinese competitors. This could lead to a decrease in overall consumer spending rather than an increase in domestic sales. 3. Amazon's strategy and competitive landscape. While Amazon is poised to benefit from these tariff changes, the retailer's reliance on the de minimis rule for its own bargain outlet haul reveals a complex competitive landscape. If Amazon uses the same loophole that the tariffs are aiming to close, it underscores that even U.S. companies could be implicated in the issues these tariffs are trying to resolve. Thus, the policies may inadvertently create a situation where the biggest U.S. e-commerce platform profits from the same dynamics it is ostensibly trying to disrupt. 4. Supply chain adjustments. In anticipation of the tariff changes, Temu and Shein have begun adapting their business models by increasing inventory in U.S. warehouses and implementing bulk shipping strategies. This preemptive move contradicts the notion that such companies will simply be forced out of the market. Instead, their adaptability may allow them to mitigate the impact of these tariffs more effectively than anticipated, thereby maintaining competitive pricing and operational viability. 5. Impact on e-commerce growth. The narrative that tariffs will stifle the growth of Chinese e-commerce giants ignores the potential for innovation and adaptation within those companies. Their rapid response to regulatory changes could lead to new business models that might not only sustain their market presence but also lead to innovations that could further disrupt traditional retail models in the U.S. 6. Tariff revenue versus consumer costs. The administration's justification for these tariffs hinges on recovering lost revenue and enhancing customs enforcement. However, the anticipated boost in tariff income may ultimately be overshadowed by the broader economic ramifications of reduced consumer spending. If consumers face higher prices and decide to cut back on spending, the net gain in tariff revenue could be negligible or even negative. 7. Legal and retroactive implications. The ambiguity surrounding the potential retroactive application of these tariffs raises questions about legal challenges that could arise. If businesses that have already imported goods under the old de minimis rules face sudden tariff assessments, it could lead to substantial disputes, further complicating the regulatory landscape and potentially resulting in unexpected financial burdens for companies and consumers alike. 8. Consumer behavior changes. The removal of the de minimis exemption may not simply shift consumers back to traditional retailers but could also drive them toward alternative platforms or methods of purchasing, including second-hand marketplaces or local alternatives that could evade tariffs. This shift in consumer behavior could have lasting implications for both online and brick-and-mortar retailers in the U.S. Conclusion. In summary, while the elimination of the de minimis exemption and the introduction of new tariffs are positioned as protective measures, the counterintuitive outcomes suggest that these policies could complicate the very issues they aim to address. The dynamics of consumer behavior, competitive market adaptation, and the economic ramifications of these changes present a complex tapestry that challenges the conventional wisdom surrounding tariff policies. The reality may be that the new tariffs could lead to higher prices, reduced access to affordable goods, and a shift in consumer purchasing patterns that ultimately undercut the objectives of protectionism. The report on the U.S. tariff policy changes, particularly the elimination of the $800 de minimis exemption, highlights critical points that may be overlooked by casual observers. These points are significant due to their implications for the e-commerce landscape, consumer behavior, and broader economic trends. 1. Impact on low-income consumers. One of the most crucial yet subtle aspects of the report is the potential adverse effect on low-income consumers. The de minimis exemption allowed low-cost goods to enter the U.S. without incurring tariffs, making affordable products accessible to a demographic that significantly relies on budget shopping. The report underscores that the removal of this exemption could disproportionately hurt these consumers, as platforms like Temu and Shein have thrived by offering low-priced goods. Significance: this is not merely an economic issue but a social one, as it could exacerbate economic inequality. Low-income families often depend on affordable e-commerce options for everyday necessities. The elimination of cheap imports could lead to increased prices on basic goods, further straining household budgets and reducing overall purchasing power. 2. E-commerce ecosystem dynamics. The report discusses how the tariff changes may alter the competitive dynamics among e-commerce platforms. While Temu and Shein have been major players due to their pricing strategies, established retailers such as Amazon may gain a significant competitive advantage as they can absorb the tariff costs more effectively. Significance: this shift could lead to a consolidation of market power among larger retailers, potentially stifling competition. If smaller e-commerce platforms struggle to maintain low prices, consumers may have fewer options, leading to a homogenized shopping experience dominated by a few large players. This can reduce innovation and variety in the market. 3. Legal and regulatory implications. The report hints at the uncertainty concerning whether the new tariff rules will apply retroactively to existing tariffs. This legal ambiguity can create a challenging environment for businesses trying to navigate compliance and financial planning. Significance: the potential for retroactive application could lead to significant financial liabilities for businesses that have already imported goods under the old regulations. This uncertainty may deter investment and expansion plans among smaller retailers and disrupt supply chains as businesses reassess their strategies in light of these new regulations. 4. The role of digital marketing and consumer behavior. Both Temu and Shein have engaged in aggressive digital marketing campaigns to attract consumers. The report notes that despite the impending tariff changes, these companies have successfully captured significant market share through strategic marketing and affordable pricing. Significance: the reliance on digital marketing strategies underscores a fundamental shift in how consumers interact with brands. As the landscape changes, it will be interesting to see how these companies adapt their marketing strategies to remain competitive. This shift may also push other retailers to innovate in their marketing approaches, potentially leading to a transformation in consumer engagement and brand loyalty. 5. Supply chain adjustments. The report highlights that Temu has begun shipping more inventory in bulk to the U.S. and establishing warehouses to mitigate delivery times in response to the tariff changes. This strategic pivot emphasizes the importance of supply chain agility in the current e-commerce environment. Significance: the ability to adapt supply chain strategies quickly can be a critical differentiator in competitive markets. Companies that can effectively manage their logistics and supply chains will likely weather economic changes better than those that cannot. This adaptability may become a key focus area for e-commerce businesses moving forward, influencing investment in logistics infrastructure. 6. Broader economic context. The report outlines that the tariff changes are part of a broader effort by the U.S. government to regain lost tariff revenue and enhance customs enforcement related to illegal goods, particularly fentanyl. Significance. While this justification may resonate with some stakeholders, it also raises questions about the balance between trade policy and public safety. The trade-offs between protecting domestic industries and ensuring consumer access to affordable goods will be a critical area of debate among policymakers and economists. 7. The future of e-commerce platforms. The existential threat posed to platforms like Temu and Shein due to these tariff changes may lead to broader implications for the future of e-commerce. As the market adjusts, we may see a shift in the types of products offered, the pricing models employed, and the overall structure of online retail. Significance. The response to these tariffs could redefine the e-commerce landscape, influencing everything from product offerings to business models. Companies may explore new partnerships, diversification strategies, or even pivot to different markets as they seek to mitigate the impact of these regulatory changes. Conclusion. The changes to the U.S. tariff policy and the elimination of the de minimis exemption present a multifaceted challenge that extends beyond mere business considerations. The implications for low-income consumers, the competitive dynamics of the e-commerce market, legal uncertainties, and broader economic contexts are all critical elements that warrant careful consideration. As the situation evolves, these factors will shape the future of e-commerce, influencing everything from consumer choices to market structures. 1. Impact on Chinese e-commerce giants. The elimination of the $800 de minimis exemption significantly threatens the business models of Chinese e-commerce platforms like Temu, Shein, and Taobao. This provision has historically allowed these companies to ship low-cost goods duty-free, enhancing their competitive edge in the U.S. market. With the introduction of tariffs, these platforms may struggle to maintain their low price points, which have been crucial for attracting budget-conscious consumers. As a result, their market share could decline, leading to broader implications for the Chinese retail sector. 2. Economic implications for U.S. consumers. The tariff changes are expected to disproportionately affect lower-income consumers who rely on affordable goods from these platforms. By removing the de minimis exemption, the U.S. government risks increasing the cost of everyday products for millions of consumers who benefit from the low prices offered by Temu and Shein. This could lead to a decline in purchasing power among these demographics, potentially causing a shift in consumer behavior and reducing overall consumption in the economy. 3. Legal and regulatory uncertainties. The ambiguity surrounding the scope of the new tariffs, particularly whether they apply retroactively to existing duties, creates a climate of uncertainty for businesses. Trade lawyers and industry analysts are cautious about how this will affect ongoing operations of e-commerce companies. The potential for legal challenges could arise as companies seek to navigate the complexities of the new regulations, which may further complicate the landscape for cross-border e-commerce. 4. Strategic responses by e-commerce platforms. In anticipation of the tariff changes, companies like Temu and Shein have begun adapting their business strategies. Temu, for instance, has increased its inventory in U.S. warehouses to mitigate delivery times and possibly avoid some of the impacts of the tariffs by paying duties up front. This shift demonstrates how these companies are seeking to innovate and adjust to regulatory changes. But it also highlights the challenges they face in maintaining their low-cost business models while complying with new tariffs. 1. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. This act raised U.S. tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods in an attempt to protect American industries during the Great Depression. The tariffs led to retaliatory measures from other countries, significantly reducing international trade and exacerbating economic downturns globally. The act is often cited as a key factor that worsened the Depression and is a historical example of how tariff policies can have far-reaching negative effects on both domestic economies and international relations. 2. The U.S.-China Trade War 2018-present. initiated by tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on Chinese goods. This trade conflict aimed to address trade imbalances and protect American industries. The tariffs led to retaliatory tariffs from China, affecting a wide range of products and industries. The trade war has had significant impacts on global supply chains, consumer prices, and the economies of both nations, illustrating the complexities and potential downsides of aggressive tariff policies. 3. The Fordney-McCumber Tariff 1922. This tariff raised duties on imports to protect U.S. industries after World War I. While it aimed to boost American manufacturing, it also led to retaliation from trading partners and ultimately contributed to tensions that would impact global trade relations. The Fordney-McCumber Tariff exemplifies how protective tariff measures can lead to unintended consequences, including economic isolation and strained international relations. Future outlook: implications of the U.S. tariff policy on Chinese e-commerce. The recent decision by the U.S. government to eliminate the $800 de minimis exemption poses significant challenges for Chinese e-commerce giants such as Temu, Shein, and Taobao. This policy shift is expected to reshape the landscape of online retail with far-reaching implications for market dynamics, consumer behavior, and international trade. 1. Impact on Chinese e-commerce giants. The removal of the de minimis exemption will likely result in increased costs for Temu, Shein, and Taobao, as they will now face tariffs on a substantial portion of their shipments. This change could make their low-cost offerings less attractive to U.S. consumers. As these platforms have thrived on their ability to provide inexpensive goods without the burden of tariffs, the new tariffs could lead to a significant decline in sales and market share. In response, these companies may need to re-evaluate their business models. Temu, for instance, has already begun moving towards bulk shipping and establishing U.S. warehouses to mitigate delivery times. However, even with these adjustments, the pressure on pricing will remain, and they may have to increase prices to offset the new costs. This could alienate their core customer base, primarily lower-income consumers who rely on affordable products. 2. Shift in consumer behavior. With the increase in prices due to tariffs, U.S. consumers may begin to pivot towards alternative shopping options. Established retailers like Amazon, eBay, and Walmart could see a resurgence in sales as consumers seek out more reliable and potentially less expensive domestic options. Amazon's introduction of its bargain outlet hall suggests that the company is already preparing to capitalize on the challenges faced by its competitors. Moreover, the psychological impact of higher prices could drive consumers to seek out discounts and special deals more aggressively, potentially leading to a more pronounced shift towards thriftiness and value-seeking behavior in the retail landscape. 3. Competitive landscape changes. The elimination of the de minimis exemption is likely to provide a competitive edge to U.S.-based retailers that do not rely on low-cost imports. Companies that can leverage economies of scale and have established supply chains in the U.S. may benefit from the reduced competition from Chinese e-commerce firms. This shift could lead to a more significant market share for American retailers, further entrenching their positions in the market. Amazon, which has long been a dominant player, may expand its services and offerings to attract customers looking for alternatives to Temu and Shein. 4. Legal and regulatory implications. The new tariff policy may also open the door for further legal challenges and regulatory scrutiny, as Chinese companies seek to navigate the new landscape. They may pursue legal avenues to contest the tariffs or seek exemptions. Additionally, U.S. lawmakers may face pressure from various stakeholders, including consumer advocacy groups, to reconsider or modify the new policies as they realize the potential negative repercussions for consumers. 5. Long-term economic effects. In the long run, the changes in tariff policy could lead to a reconfiguration of international trade dynamics. As Chinese e-commerce companies struggle to maintain their foothold in the U.S. market, there may be broader implications for U.S.-China trade relations. Increased tariffs could exacerbate tensions between the two countries, potentially leading to retaliatory measures from China. Furthermore, the economic impact of these tariffs could extend beyond e-commerce, affecting supply chains, manufacturing, and the prices of consumer goods more broadly. If consumers face higher prices across the board, this could lead to decreased consumer spending and slower economic growth. 6. Conclusion: a new era of e-commerce. The U.S. government's elimination of the $800 de minimis exemption has set the stage for a significant transformation in the e-commerce landscape. While it may be seen as a protective measure for American retailers, it also raises concerns about consumer access to affordable goods and the potential for increased prices. As Chinese platforms like Temu and Shein navigate these challenges, their ability to adapt will be crucial to their survival. The evolving dynamics of consumer behavior, competitive landscapes, and regulatory environments will shape the future of e-commerce in the U.S. Ultimately, the changes brought about by these tariff policies could signal the dawn of a new era in online retail, marked by increased competition, shifting consumer priorities, and potential economic repercussions across industries.